Are you tired of reacting impulsively and letting emotions control your decisions? Imagine mastering the ancient rule of not reacting first, transforming every situation into an opportunity for clarity, power, and personal growth. In this video, you'll discover actionable strategies that help you pause, observe, and respond with wisdom, turning impulse into intentional action and conflict into calm resolution. These techniques aren't just theory, they're practical steps you can apply today to strengthen discipline, enhance relationships, and achieve long-term success. Subscribe to Audiobook every day and join a community committed to daily self-improvement, insight, and lifelong mastery. Number 1. Pause before choosing your response. In life, every interaction, every conversation, and every challenge presents an opportunity to either react impulsively or respond with intention. The ancient rule of not reacting first is not simply a strategy for avoiding conflict. It is a practice of self-mastery, a principle that strengthens the mind and shapes the character. At its core, pausing before responding is about reclaiming control over your emotions, your actions, and ultimately, your life. It is the difference between being driven by external circumstances and being guided by your inner wisdom. Consider the simple act of receiving criticism. The natural human instinct is to defend, to justify, or even to retaliate. This reaction comes from a place of ego, from the immediate emotional surge that seeks to protect the self. Yet, pausing, even for a brief moment, transforms the dynamic entirely. That split second creates a space, a gap between stimulus and response. Within that space lies power. In that pause, clarity emerges. Instead of reacting in anger or defensiveness, the mind can assess the situation, weigh the facts, and choose a response aligned with reason and long-term benefit rather than short-term emotion. Pausing is not weakness. It is strength disguised as restraint. It requires discipline to resist the urge to immediately react, particularly when emotions run high. The mind craves instant resolution, instant expression, but wisdom favors patience. Developing this pause begins with awareness. Notice the signals your body sends when you feel provoked. The tightening of muscles, the quickening of the heartbeat, the shallow breath, the rush of thoughts ready to launch into words or action. Awareness of these signals is the first step toward mastery. Recognition of the reaction before it manifests allows you to step back and decide your course deliberately. Practical application of this principle begins with small everyday situations. When someone interrupts you in a conversation, the initial impulse may be to snap or assert dominance. Instead, take a measured breath. Let the words linger in your mind for a moment before responding. This pause communicates control and confidence without aggression. Over time, this simple practice becomes habit. In more intense situations, such as receiving harsh criticism at work or dealing with a personal conflict, the same principle applies on a larger scale. A brief pause, even if only a few seconds, prevents reactive behavior that could escalate the situation. The pause is also a tool for clarity. Often, emotions cloud judgment, distorting perception and prompting actions that are later regretted. By pausing, the mind has a chance to filter through emotional noise, to discern the underlying truth of the situation. Ask yourself during that pause, what is the real issue? What outcome do I want? Will my immediate reaction serve my values or undermine them? In this moment, the pause becomes a lens through which reality is observed more clearly. To make this practice tangible, develop a ritual for pausing. One effective method is the 3-breath rule. When faced with a provocation or a difficult choice, consciously take 3 slow, deep breaths before responding. Each breath serves as a reset, calming the nervous system and creating the mental space needed for thoughtful action. During these breaths, focus on the sensations in the body, the rise and fall of the chest, the feeling of air passing through the nostrils, the grounding sensation in the feet. This physical mindfulness reinforces the mental pause, linking body and mind in deliberate calmness. Beyond immediate responses, the pause cultivates emotional resilience. It trains the mind to tolerate tension without succumbing to automatic reactions. Life is filled with unpredictable circumstances, and emotional storms are inevitable. Those who react first are tossed by every wave, swept along by circumstances beyond their control. Those who pause first stand firm, observing the storm, understanding its patterns, and choosing how to navigate it. The pause is a form of mental armor, a shield forged in patience and self-awareness. In addition to personal mastery, pausing before responding improves relationships. Reacting impulsively can damage trust, create misunderstandings, and escalate conflicts. A measured response, however, communicates respect, thoughtfulness, and maturity. It allows for dialogue rather than confrontation. For example, in an argument with a loved one, the initial flare of irritation may be strong, but a pause gives space for empathy. It allows you to consider the other person's perspective, to find common ground, and to respond in a way that fosters connection rather than division. Over time, this approach transforms interactions, building stronger, more resilient bonds. Pausing also enhances decision-making in professional and creative endeavors. Impulsive decisions are often short-sighted, driven by fear, desire, or urgency. By taking a deliberate pause, the mind gains the ability to evaluate options, anticipate consequences, and make choices aligned with long-term goals. Successful leaders, thinkers, and innovators have mastered this principle intuitively. They understand that the first reaction is rarely the most effective, and that wisdom often requires restraint. The pause is not indecision, it is strategic foresight. This practice extends into self-talk as well. The internal dialogue that accompanies moments of stress, frustration, or temptation can be just as destructive as external conflict. Pausing before reacting internally allows you to challenge unhelpful thoughts, replace negative assumptions with rational perspective, and maintain composure. For instance, when facing a setback, the initial reaction might be self-criticism or despair. A pause allows you to step back, assess the situation objectively, and plan the next step with clarity and confidence. Implementing this principle consistently demands conscious effort. Start by identifying triggers, situations, people, or topics that provoke automatic reactions. Practice pausing specifically in these contexts. Reflect daily on moments when the pause was successful and when it was overlooked. Journaling can help capture insights and progress, reinforcing the habit over time. Gradually, the pause evolves from a deliberate technique into a natural response, becoming part of your character rather than a forced effort. The pause is also a path to inner freedom. When actions are dictated by reflexive responses, life feels reactive, chaotic, and externally controlled. By choosing to pause, you assert sovereignty over your mind and your emotions. You create a rhythm of life led by intention rather than impulse. This is empowerment. The world will always present provocations, challenges, and conflicts, but your response defines your experience. In mastering the pause, you master yourself, and in mastering yourself, you influence the world in ways that are deliberate, impactful, and honorable. In conclusion, pausing before choosing your response is a practice of immense power, subtle yet transformative. It is not about suppressing emotion or avoiding action. It is about cultivating discernment, resilience, and intentionality. It is about observing, reflecting, and then acting in alignment with wisdom and purpose. Each pause strengthens the mind, nurtures emotional intelligence, and fosters meaningful relationships. It transforms ordinary interactions into opportunities for growth, shaping a life of discipline, clarity, and calm strength. By committing to this principle, you gain mastery over your reactions, clarity in decision-making, and the ability to navigate life with dignity and foresight. The first response is rarely the wisest. The measured response, born from a pause, carries the power to change outcomes, relationships, and ultimately, your life. This is the foundation of self-mastery: to pause, to reflect, and then to act with deliberate purpose. Every time this rule is applied, it becomes easier, more natural, and more effective. It cultivates patience, deepens understanding, and builds the kind of character that others respect and admire. Embrace this ancient rule fully, and you will discover that the space between stimulus and response is not empty. It is fertile ground for wisdom, growth, and lasting success. Number 2. Master stillness during emotional storms. Life often presents us with moments where emotions surge like waves, unpredictable and overwhelming. In these moments, the natural tendency is to react, to lash out, or to flee. Yet, true strength is revealed not in reaction, but in the ability to remain calm, centered, and unshaken amid turbulence. Mastering stillness during emotional storms is not about suppressing feelings or pretending they do not exist. It is about cultivating an inner sanctuary where clarity, perspective, and resilience can flourish, even when the external world feels chaotic. It is the art of maintaining composure when everything within and around you is urging you to act impulsively. Emotional storms can appear in many forms: anger, fear, disappointment, jealousy, or grief. The intensity of these feelings can cloud judgment, distort perception, and trigger responses that bring more harm than benefit. Yet, the human mind has an extraordinary capacity to observe, reflect, and respond deliberately, even in the midst of inner turmoil. Developing stillness begins with awareness. Recognize the onset of emotional agitation the moment it arises. Feel it fully, notice how it manifests in your body, perhaps a tightening in the chest, a flutter in the stomach, or a tension in the shoulders. This awareness does not weaken you. It gives you the first opportunity to choose your next action, instead of being controlled by the emotion itself. The practice of stillness is rooted in the understanding that emotions are transient. Anger may flare, sadness may linger, anxiety may press, yet these feelings are temporary and often exaggerated by the mind's tendency to dwell or catastrophize. Observing emotions as passing phenomena creates distance between self and sensation. Imagine standing on the shore while a storm rages at sea. You can see the waves, hear the thunder, and feel the wind, but you remain on solid ground, unaffected in your core. Emotional mastery works in the same way. By maintaining this inner stability, the mind becomes a calm harbor where clarity and reason can navigate effectively. One practical technique to cultivate stillness is deep, intentional breathing. When emotions escalate, the breath often becomes shallow and rapid, feeding the intensity of the experience. Taking slow, deliberate breaths, filling the lungs completely and exhaling fully, acts as an anchor. Each inhalation brings awareness, and each exhalation releases tension. With practice, this technique allows the body to signal the mind that it is safe to return to equilibrium. Even in moments of extreme stress, a few measured breaths can slow the heart, calm the nervous system and create a space for thoughtful action rather than impulsive reaction. Another key practice is grounding attention in the present moment. Emotional storms often arise from regrets about the past or fears about the future. By consciously focusing on what is happening here and now, on the sensations of the body, the sounds around you, or the rhythm of your breathing, you redirect energy from spiraling thoughts toward conscious awareness. This redirection not only stabilizes the mind, but also empowers it to respond with precision and intentionality. The present moment becomes a shield against being swept away by reactive impulses or overwhelming feelings. Stillness is also strengthened through mental rehearsal. Visualize yourself in a scenario where emotional intensity is high. See yourself remaining composed, responding with patience and clarity. Imagine the calming breath, the steady posture, the deliberate words. This form of preparation trains the mind to recognize emotional storms as manageable, reducing the likelihood of being caught off guard in real situations. Repetition of these visualizations builds mental muscle, so when genuine turbulence arises, calmness is instinctive rather than forced. Furthermore, cultivating stillness requires embracing the principle of non-attachment to immediate outcomes. Emotional storms often ignite from a desire to control events, outcomes, or other people's behavior. Yet, the reality is that control is limited. By letting go of the illusion of absolute influence and focusing instead on how to maintain internal balance, the mind can navigate challenges without being destabilized. Acceptance of what is beyond control does not mean passivity. It means consciously choosing the response that is aligned with reason and long-term benefit, rather than reacting out of desperation or frustration. Stillness is enhanced when one integrates reflection into daily life. Journaling, meditation, or quiet contemplation provide opportunities to examine emotional triggers, recognize patterns, and cultivate insight. This practice strengthens the ability to remain centered under pressure because it builds familiarity with one's internal landscape. Knowing the tendencies of the mind, the habitual reactions, the common triggers, allows for anticipation and deliberate choice. Through reflection, emotional storms become less intimidating, understood as natural phenomena rather than threats to stability or competence. The power of stillness extends beyond individual benefit. It profoundly impacts relationships and environments. A person who can remain calm amid tension radiates confidence, empathy, and authority. Others are more likely to respond positively to composed energy than to anger, panic, or impulsive behavior. In conflict, stillness can de-escalate aggression, foster understanding, and facilitate constructive dialogue. In leadership, it inspires trust and loyalty as people feel secure in the presence of someone who does not succumb to chaos. Emotional equilibrium is contagious. Mastering it improves not only your own life, but the atmosphere of every space you inhabit. Building stillness also involves patience with oneself. Emotional storms may persist despite effort, and lapses into reactive behavior are natural in the early stages of practice. What matters is persistence, not perfection. Each moment of awareness, each attempt to remain calm, is a step toward greater mastery. Reflect on experiences without judgment, extract lessons, and continue forward with renewed determination. Over time, the mind learns to navigate even the fiercest internal tempests with poise and clarity, turning challenges into opportunities for growth. Incorporating movement into the practice can further reinforce stillness. Simple techniques, such as mindful walking, gentle stretching, or controlled physical exercises, help release tension stored in the body, which often fuels emotional turbulence. By integrating body and mind, you create a system of resilience that is not purely mental but embodied. The combination of awareness, breath, reflection, and physical grounding produces a holistic calm that endures even in high-pressure situations. Ultimately, mastering stillness during emotional storms is about reclaiming power. It is about refusing to be swept away by the raw force of circumstance, refusing to allow impulsive feelings to dictate behavior. It is about cultivating a sanctuary within, a place of clarity, strength, and unwavering focus. In stillness, decision-making is enhanced, relationships are strengthened, and the mind becomes a tool rather than a servant to fleeting emotions. The capacity to remain composed under duress is a mark of wisdom, discipline, and resilience, distinguishing those who are led by circumstance from those who lead themselves and their environment. Embracing this practice transforms daily life. Stressful interactions become manageable. Setbacks and disappointments are navigated with clarity rather than despair. Opportunities for thoughtful action arise naturally. The power of stillness creates a ripple effect, influencing personal growth, professional success, and the well-being of everyone around. Life's storms remain inevitable, but the ability to remain unmoved in their presence allows you to harness challenges as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Remaining still is not passive. It is deliberate, courageous, and profoundly empowering. It requires consistent attention, conscious effort, and unwavering commitment. Each moment of composure reinforces the mind's ability to withstand pressure, sharpen judgment, and act with precision. With time, the practice becomes second nature, and the chaotic waves of life are met, not with fear or reaction, but with calm observation, measured response, and quiet confidence. Mastering stillness during emotional storms is the foundation of enduring personal power. It transforms the mind from a reactive instrument into a source of clarity and wisdom. It is a skill that enhances every aspect of life, from decision-making to relationships, from leadership to personal fulfillment. Those who achieve this stillness discover freedom, the freedom to navigate any challenge with poise, the freedom to act with intention, and the freedom to live a life guided by reason rather than impulse. The storms will come, but the calm within will remain unshaken, steady and unwavering, a testament to the strength that lies in deliberate stillness. Number 3. Train mind to observe first. In the journey of personal mastery, the ability to observe before acting is one of the most profound skills one can cultivate. Life unfolds with constant stimuli, people, circumstances, challenges, and surprises that provoke instinctive reactions. The majority of human behavior is driven by habit, impulse, or conditioned response. Yet, the greatest thinkers, leaders, and philosophers understood that the first action need not be immediate. Observation creates a space between stimulus and response, allowing the mind to interpret, assess, and decide with clarity rather than being swept along by automatic impulses. Training the mind to observe first is an exercise in discipline, awareness, and intelligence that transforms both everyday life and moments of high pressure. Observation is not passive. It requires focused attention and conscious engagement. The first step is to recognize how often reactions occur before understanding. A heated conversation may provoke a defensive retort. An unexpected challenge at work may trigger anxiety or frustration. In each case, the immediate reaction is often unconsidered, guided by emotion or habit. By intentionally pausing to observe, you create a vantage point where clarity is possible. Observation allows the mind to notice not only external events but internal responses, the emotions, physical sensations, and thoughts that arise. This awareness is the foundation of deliberate action. Practically training the mind to observe begins with mindful attention. In daily life, small moments present perfect opportunities. While walking, notice the sensations of movement, the rhythm of your steps, the sounds around you. During conversations, focus on listening rather than immediately forming a reply. In interactions, watch facial expressions, gestures, and tone of voice, perceiving subtle signals that reveal meaning beyond words. Observation in these ordinary situations strengthens the habit, creating neural pathways that prepare the mind to respond thoughtfully when more significant moments arise. Observation also involves self-awareness. Emotions often shape perception before reason has a chance to intervene. Anger, fear, pride, or envy can color interpretation of events, leading to reactive or even destructive behavior. By noticing these emotional undercurrents, you gain insight into your triggers and habitual tendencies. Ask questions internally. What is this feeling? Where does it come from? Is it based on fact or assumption? Observation without judgment allows clarity to emerge, separating reality from the distortion of emotion. With practice, this skill creates a consistent ability to respond with intention rather than being dominated by immediate impulses. A powerful method to develop this capacity is the mental pause and label technique. When a strong emotional response arises, pause for a moment and mentally name what you are experiencing. This is anger, this is surprise, this is fear. Naming the emotion immediately creates distance, converting an instinctive reaction into conscious awareness. The act of labeling interrupts automatic response patterns and allows the mind to analyze the situation from a higher vantage point. This practice, repeated consistently, strengthens cognitive control and fosters the habit of observing before reacting. Observation extends beyond emotion into judgment and action. When faced with decisions, particularly under pressure, most individuals respond based on the urgency or perceived expectations of the moment. The trained observer, however, approaches the situation differently. First, they collect data. They assess the facts, consider context, and anticipate potential consequences. Then they interpret, not impulsively, but with rational discernment. Only after this thorough observation does action follow. The first step is never reaction. It is understanding. This shift profoundly alters outcomes, turning rash mistakes into thoughtful solutions and conflict into cooperation. Observation also enhances empathy and relationships. By genuinely observing others, listening deeply, watching carefully, and noting both verbal and non-verbal cues, you gain insight into motives, fears, and desires. This understanding fosters connection, patience, and effective communication. People respond positively to those who appear attentive and discerning rather than reactive or judgmental. In social and professional settings, the ability to observe first allows one to navigate interactions strategically, creating influence without confrontation and building trust through thoughtful engagement. Training the mind to observe first requires consistency. Set aside intentional moments for reflection and mindfulness daily. Engage in practices such as meditation, journaling, or quiet contemplation, all of which develop the capacity to watch the mind without immediate interference. Observe thoughts as they arise, acknowledging their presence without attachment. This practice, when combined with observing external circumstances, trains the mind to function as a neutral lens, capable of accurate perception, clear reasoning, and deliberate choice. Another critical aspect is observing patterns over time. Life repeats themes, challenges, and behaviors in cyclical ways. By observing these patterns, your reactions, habitual responses of others, and recurring circumstances, you gain foresight and strategic advantage. Instead of reacting blindly, you recognize familiar dynamics and anticipate outcomes. This foresight transforms reactive individuals into architects of their own decisions, capable of navigating life's complexities with calmness and intelligence. Observation is also a tool for personal growth. Many conflicts, mistakes, or disappointments are compounded by lack of awareness. Observing internal reactions allows identification of weaknesses, biases, or areas in need of development. This continuous feedback loop encourages deliberate improvement. Each moment of observation becomes an opportunity to refine judgment, strengthen patience, and cultivate wisdom. In essence, observing before acting is not only a survival strategy, it is a vehicle for transformation. Physical awareness enhances mental observation. Body and mind are interconnected, and bodily sensations often signal emotional or cognitive responses before conscious recognition. Notice tension, posture, heart rate, or the gut's response to situations. These signals can act as early warnings, giving time to prepare a deliberate response. Over time, the integration of somatic awareness and mental observation creates a profound capacity to respond with precision and poise, even in high-pressure scenarios. Observation is strengthened by patience and humility. Recognizing that first impulses are rarely the wisest requires acknowledgement that one does not always know immediately what is correct or beneficial. This humility fosters openness and curiosity, turning every moment of uncertainty into an opportunity to gather insight rather than act impulsively. Patience allows the mind to hold still, to absorb information, and to respond in alignment with values rather than emotion. It transforms challenges into opportunities to exercise judgment and integrity. Even in moments of crisis, observation provides stability. Emergencies, conflicts, or sudden life changes can provoke panic and impulsive decisions. A mind trained to observe first resists this chaos. By focusing attention on facts, consequences, and priorities, the individual navigates situations effectively. Observation becomes a compass, guiding action with precision rather than reaction. In these moments, those who have developed this discipline often emerge with solutions and outcomes far superior to those who respond immediately without reflection. Ultimately, training the mind to observe first is an act of empowerment. It transforms automatic reactions into conscious responses, turning moments of potential chaos into opportunities for strategic, thoughtful action. Observation strengthens self-mastery, improves relationships, enhances decision-making, and cultivates resilience in the face of uncertainty. It is the foundation upon which other principles of wisdom, patience, stillness, intentionality are built. By choosing to observe first, the mind becomes a force of clarity and strength, capable of navigating the complexities of life with purpose and insight. Each act of observation reinforces a cycle of awareness, reflection, and deliberate action. Over time, this discipline becomes instinctive. Life's challenges no longer dictate responses. Instead, the mind guides behavior with steady confidence. Observation is the gateway to self-control, insight, and influence. It is a skill that empowers individuals to rise above impulsive tendencies, engage thoughtfully with the world, and make decisions that reflect their highest values and long-term vision. The practice of observing first is not a passive retreat from life. It is an active engagement with reality, chosen deliberately and executed with intention. It allows life to be approached with strategic patience, emotional intelligence, and clarity of purpose. Those who master this principle discover a profound sense of control and freedom. They navigate chaos with calm precision, respond to adversity with wisdom, and influence their surroundings without being consumed by them. Observation is the seed of mastery, and those who cultivate it find themselves not merely reacting to life, but shaping it with deliberate intent. Number 4. Detach ego from immediate reactions. Human beings are deeply influenced by the ego, the part of the mind that seeks recognition, validation, and protection. The ego thrives on immediate reactions because these responses often serve to defend identity, assert superiority, or protect self-esteem. Yet, yielding to this impulse can lead to conflict, regret, and missed opportunities for growth. Detaching from the ego is the practice of creating a mental distance between self-image and circumstance, allowing clarity, composure, and purposeful action to emerge. It is not about denying emotion or suppressing personality. It is about refusing to let the need for approval, dominance, or defense dictate behavior. Learning to detach from ego is essential for responding rather than reacting, for acting from wisdom rather than pride, and for mastering the internal landscape of life. Ego-driven reactions are often instantaneous. A cutting remark, a perceived insult, or a challenge to authority triggers a defensive mechanism that demands retaliation or justification. This automatic response is powerful precisely because it is deeply wired into the mind. The desire to protect self-image, to assert competence, or to maintain control can feel urgent and unavoidable. Yet, the consequences of such reactions are often disproportionate to the stimulus. Words spoken in haste can damage relationships, close doors to collaboration, and create lingering tension. Detachment from ego interrupts this cycle, creating a pause during which reason and perspective can guide action. Detaching the ego begins with recognition. Awareness of how pride, fear, or desire for validation motivates reaction is crucial. By observing the triggers, one can see how the ego seeks to assert itself and how this assertion manifests as impulsive action. Awareness alone does not eliminate the ego, but it creates the space necessary to choose differently. With practice, you learn to notice the instinctive pull of ego before it dictates behavior, providing a critical moment for intervention and conscious decision-making. One practical method to cultivate detachment is to focus on the distinction between the event and your perception of it. Often, ego-driven reactions stem from interpreting circumstances as personal attacks or challenges to self-worth. By reframing the situation as neutral or external, the mind can respond objectively. For example, if someone criticizes your work, consider that the comment reflects their perspective rather than a reflection of your value or competence. This mental separation reduces emotional intensity, allowing space for measured, thoughtful responses rather than reactive defensiveness. Self-reflection reinforces detachment. Each evening, consider the moments when ego dominated your actions. Reflect without judgment, simply noting the patterns and triggers. What situations prompted defensiveness, arrogance, or impatience? How did these reactions impact others and yourself? Through this reflective practice, insight emerges, and over time, habitual ego-driven responses can be replaced with deliberate, value-aligned behavior. Detachment from ego is reinforced by humility. Humility is not self-deprecation. It is an understanding that individual importance is often overstated by internal narratives. Recognizing that events, successes, and failures exist in broader contexts diminishes the urgency of ego-driven reactions. It allows you to respond from a grounded perspective, recognizing the temporary nature of both praise and criticism. Humility fosters patience, empathy, and resilience, all of which reduce the grip of the ego in stressful or provocative situations. Mindfulness practices strengthen this detachment. When emotions surge, pause to observe bodily sensations and thoughts without attachment. Notice the tension in the jaw, the quickening heartbeat, or the rush of thoughts demanding expression. Label these sensations. This is pride, this is frustration, this is desire for approval, and allow them to exist without acting upon them. Mindfulness teaches the mind to experience impulses without being driven by them, gradually weakening the automatic link between ego and reaction. Another technique is to cultivate an orientation toward long-term goals rather than immediate validation. Ego thrives on instant affirmation, yet life's most meaningful outcomes often require patience, humility, and strategic action. By prioritizing purpose over recognition, the mind naturally bypasses the immediate urge to react defensively. In professional, social, or personal contexts, this approach allows the focus to remain on results, relationships, and growth, rather than on protecting pride or asserting dominance. Detachment from ego also requires emotional literacy. Understanding the spectrum of feelings that fuel reactive behavior, anger, fear, envy, or pride, enables intentional regulation. Name the emotion, trace its origin, and assess its relevance to the situation. Ask, will reacting reinforce my values or undermine them? This deliberate inquiry interrupts automatic responses and cultivates self-control, fostering actions guided by principle rather than by fragile self-image. Physical grounding amplifies detachment. Emotions often manifest in the body before they reach conscious awareness, creating impulsive responses. Techniques such as slow, deep breathing, deliberate posture adjustment, or focusing on sensory experiences anchor the body and calm the nervous system. This physiological stability reinforces mental detachment, creating a unified capacity to observe, reflect, and act purposefully. Relationships improve dramatically when ego-driven impulses are managed. Reacting from pride or defensiveness creates friction, misunderstandings, and resentment. Detachment fosters active listening, empathy, and patience, allowing interactions to become more cooperative and productive. By withholding immediate reaction, you create a space for others to express themselves fully, while also modeling composure and self-regulation. This transforms conflict into dialogue, tension into collaboration, and challenge into opportunity. Detachment from ego is a continuous practice, not a one-time achievement. Life constantly presents situations that test the balance between self-interest and wisdom. Each challenge offers a chance to reinforce detachment, a disagreement, an insult, an unexpected setback, or a moment of praise. Consistent application strengthens the mind's capacity to remain centered and deliberate. Over time, detachment becomes intuitive, and the automatic pull of ego diminishes. The benefits extend beyond interpersonal relationships. Mental clarity, emotional resilience, and strategic insight all flourish when the ego is held in check. Decisions are made based on accuracy and principle rather than defensiveness or pride. Creativity thrives because the mind is less concerned with judgment or recognition and more focused on problem solving and innovation. Even under pressure, the detached mind operates with steadiness, precision, and confidence. The process of detachment does not imply suppression or passivity. Emotions, thoughts, and opinions remain present, but are no longer uncontrollable drivers of behavior. The mind is free to engage with the world deliberately, acting in accordance with values, intentions, and long-term objectives. This freedom is the essence of personal power, not dominance over others, but mastery over self. Ultimately, detaching from the ego transforms how life is experienced. Challenges become opportunities to exercise composure, criticisms become tools for insight, and conflicts become arenas for strategic engagement. The reactive mind gives way to a discerning, wise mind. Detachment does not remove the intensity of life, but allows one to navigate it with calm, clarity, and control. Each choice made from detachment reinforces self-mastery, strengthens resilience, and cultivates a reputation for thoughtful, intentional action. By consistently practicing detachment, the first impulse no longer dictates outcomes. Instead, deliberate observation, reflection, and assessment guide behavior. The mind is no longer a slave to pride, fear, or desire for validation, but becomes an instrument of wisdom and purpose. Through this practice, individuals achieve freedom, the freedom to act with intention, to navigate challenges with poise, and to engage with the world authentically, without being bound by the fluctuating tides of ego. Detachment from ego is not an abstract concept. It is a daily, practical discipline. Every interaction, decision, and internal reaction is an opportunity to practice. With patience, awareness, and dedication, the instinctive link between ego and reaction can be weakened, allowing thoughtful, principled, and effective responses to take its place. This is the pathway to inner strength, emotional intelligence, and a life guided by reason and integrity rather than impulse and self-interest. Number 5. Use silence as strategic power. Silence is often underestimated in a world that celebrates constant noise, immediate opinions, and rapid reaction. Yet, there is profound power in stillness and restraint. Strategic silence is not the absence of thought or awareness. It is an intentional pause, a tool that creates influence, clarity, and control. By choosing when to speak and when to remain silent, you command attention, preserve mental energy, and foster deeper understanding. The ability to wield silence strategically separates reactive individuals from those who navigate life with precision, foresight, and strength. Silence is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and profoundly effective. In conversations, silence carries weight. When words are rushed or excessive, meaning can be diluted, emotions can be inflamed, and intentions can be misinterpreted. Pausing before responding, or choosing not to respond immediately, gives the mind space to assess the situation. This deliberate quiet signals confidence and self-control. People often feel compelled to fill silence, revealing more than they intended, or clarifying points that may otherwise remain ambiguous. By holding back, you allow the dynamics of the conversation to unfold without being driven solely by impulse or ego. Silence creates a vacuum in which observation and comprehension thrive. Strategic silence also provides a buffer for emotion. Many conflicts arise when words are spoken in anger, frustration, or fear. Immediate responses often amplify tension, escalating disagreements rather than resolving them. By choosing to remain silent initially, the emotional intensity has time to dissipate. This pause ensures that responses come from reason rather than reaction, from strategy rather than impulse. In this way, silence functions as both a shield and a lens, protecting against rash actions while allowing clarity to emerge. In professional contexts, silence amplifies authority and presence. Leaders who listen more than they speak command respect and attention. Silence demonstrates that thoughts are measured, decisions are deliberate, and actions are purposeful. When a leader remains quiet while others speak, they gain insight, identify underlying concerns, and formulate responses that are precise and impactful. Words spoken with intention after careful consideration carry greater influence than a stream of hurried or reactive speech. Silence is a tool of mastery, shaping perception as much as any action or decision. Silence is also invaluable for internal processing. The mind rarely reaches its highest clarity amid constant noise, both external and internal. By creating deliberate moments of quiet, you allow yourself to reflect, evaluate, and integrate information before acting. Meditation, quiet contemplation, or simply taking a few moments to breathe and observe can transform reactive tendencies into thoughtful responses. This internal discipline strengthens judgment, heightens awareness, and fosters a calm confidence that cannot be replicated by hurried words or actions. Strategic silence extends to conflict resolution. When provoked or challenged, resisting the urge to immediately counterattack allows the other party to reveal their intentions, motives, or weaknesses. Silence encourages dialogue rather than confrontation, creating space for understanding and negotiation. In debates, holding back demonstrates composure and self-possession, often leading opponents to underestimate the depth of preparation and insight behind your words. The pause transforms situations from emotionally charged reactions into controlled strategic engagements. Silence can also amplify listening. Genuine listening requires the absence of preoccupation with one's own response. By remaining quiet, the mind is free to focus entirely on what is being communicated, the words, the tone, the subtext, and the emotions behind them. Observing fully allows deeper understanding and fosters empathy, building trust and rapport. People feel valued when they are truly heard, and silence is the conduit through which such attentive listening occurs. Another dimension of silence is in decision-making. Rapid decisions, especially under pressure, often reflect urgency rather than reason. Taking a moment of quiet reflection allows the mind to weigh facts, anticipate consequences, and explore alternatives. This intentional pause reduces the influence of external pressures or emotional impulses, leading to decisions that are more rational, balanced, and aligned with long-term objectives. Silence becomes an ally, giving thought the space to mature before action. Silence also strengthens influence in social and professional interactions. Those who constantly speak risk losing credibility or diluting authority, while those who speak deliberately command attention. Silence encourages others to fill the gap, often revealing valuable insights or vulnerabilities. In negotiations, a well-timed pause after a proposal or question can pressure the other party to reconsider, clarify, or make concessions. This is not manipulation in a negative sense. It is strategic communication rooted in awareness and restraint. Choosing when to speak grants the mind control over narrative and outcome. Emotionally, strategic silence nurtures resilience. When external events provoke anxiety, frustration, or anger, immediate verbal or physical reaction often reinforces tension. By remaining silent, the individual interrupts the cycle, creating a space for composure. This calm presence in the midst of disturbance strengthens confidence, reduces stress, and fosters a sense of mastery. It allows life's turbulence to be met with observation, assessment, and purposeful response, rather than impulsive reaction. Physical practice enhances the power of silence. Activities such as mindful breathing, focused meditation, walking alone, or spending intentional time away from external noise strengthen both mental and emotional control. The body becomes accustomed to restraint, and the mind learns to thrive in the absence of constant expression. Silence shifts from being a reactive tool to a natural state of clarity and power. Silence is particularly effective in moments of provocation. When someone attempts to elicit anger, insult, or defensiveness, the quiet response disarms tension. Words spoken impulsively in these moments often escalate conflict or compromise authority. Silence conveys strength, self-assurance, and patience. It demonstrates that the individual is not controlled by circumstance or emotion. The power of strategic quiet communicates far more than any hastily spoken argument could, leaving a lasting impression of composure and insight. Developing the habit of strategic silence requires awareness, intention, and practice. Begin with small interactions. Resist filling every pause in conversation. Observe the flow of dialogue and notice how others respond to moments of quiet. Extend this practice to more significant scenarios, including disagreements, negotiations, and moments of internal tension. Reflect daily on the effectiveness of silence in guiding outcomes, shaping perception, and preserving mental clarity. Over time, it becomes second nature, a tool wielded instinctively rather than consciously forced. Silence also cultivates patience, an essential component of long-term success. The ability to wait, observe, and act at the appropriate moment enhances judgment, reduces error, and fosters deeper understanding. In every area of life, from personal relationships to professional endeavors, the measured pause allows for more precise, thoughtful, and effective engagement. The individual who masters silence learns to navigate life deliberately, influencing circumstances without being dominated by them. Ultimately, silence is not emptiness. It is presence, intention, and strategy. It allows the mind to remain grounded amid chaos, to perceive clearly, and to act decisively. By using silence strategically, words gain weight, actions gain meaning, and influence expands. It empowers the individual to engage with life on their own terms, demonstrating mastery over both internal impulses and external pressures. Silence becomes an instrument of insight, restraint, and authority, a tool through which wisdom, composure, and deliberate power are expressed. Embracing strategic silence transforms life. Interactions become measured, decisions become thoughtful, and emotional stability strengthens. The first impulse to speak is no longer automatic. Instead, the mind assesses, observes, and engages with precision. Silence, when applied consciously, amplifies understanding, enhances relationships, and strengthens the capacity for influence. It fosters clarity, preserves mental energy, and cultivates a disciplined, resilient, and powerful presence in the world. The practice of silence is not passive avoidance. It is deliberate engagement. It requires patience, awareness, and commitment to cultivating control over speech, emotion, and reaction. Every moment of measured quiet reinforces the mind's ability to observe, assess, and respond with intention. Life's challenges, provocations, and complexities are met not with haste or noise, but with clarity, insight, and quiet power. Those who master silence find themselves navigating the world with subtle authority, intentional influence, and profound self-mastery. Number 6. Let time clarify true intent. Life often rushes by in a blur of interactions, decisions, and events, each demanding immediate attention and response. Yet, the most significant lessons and insights rarely arrive in the instant of occurrence. Time has a unique ability to reveal truth, illuminate motives, and clarify intent. The urge to act immediately, driven by emotion, fear, or assumption, often obscures reality. Allowing time to unfold before responding cultivates wisdom, discernment, and strategic understanding. It is not procrastination. It is the deliberate practice of observing, reflecting, and letting circumstances and character reveal themselves before committing energy or action. This principle transforms impulsive reactions into deliberate, measured, and insightful decisions, creating outcomes that align with long-term goals rather than temporary perceptions. Human beings often misinterpret situations because immediate perception is clouded by emotion, bias, or incomplete information. Anger can exaggerate the severity of a comment, impatience can distort the meaning of a delay, and pride can misread neutral actions as challenges. When confronted with complex circumstances, giving time for perspective to develop allows initial assumptions to settle and context to emerge. This temporal buffer creates a natural filter, separating what is fleeting from what is substantive. What may feel urgent or critical in the moment often loses intensity when examined after a period of calm reflection. By resisting the compulsion to respond instantly, one gains insight into both external circumstances and internal reactions. Time also reveals the motives and intentions of others more clearly than any immediate interpretation can. People act in ways that are often masked by stress, confusion, or ego. A harsh word, a delayed response, or a surprising action may initially appear hostile, indifferent, or manipulative. Yet, when observed over days, weeks, or even months, the true intent becomes apparent. Patterns emerge, consistency or inconsistency is revealed, and the underlying character of individuals is illuminated. By letting time act as an ally, the mind gains the clarity necessary to respond appropriately and effectively, rather than reacting to an incomplete or distorted perception. In practical terms, this principle is implemented through conscious pauses and observation. When faced with a difficult situation or a provocative statement, avoid the urge to respond immediately. Allow hours, days, or even longer intervals to observe patterns, gather additional information, and witness the evolution of circumstances. This delay does not mean ignoring the situation. It means creating a structured approach where decisions are informed by evidence, context, and insight, rather than impulse or assumption. With this discipline, actions become calculated, strategic, and aligned with both integrity and long-term objectives. Time also clarifies the value and impact of emotional responses. Strong feelings such as anger, resentment, or frustration are often fleeting. What feels overwhelmingly important in the heat of the moment may lose significance once the mind has had time to process. Allowing time to pass before responding ensures that actions are guided by reason rather than by temporary emotional intensity. In this way, restraint is not passivity but an exercise of strength and intelligence. It prevents regret and creates opportunities for outcomes that are both effective and harmonious. This approach extends to evaluating opportunities and challenges. Initial impressions are rarely complete. By waiting, patterns of feasibility, consistency, and potential consequences become visible. Whether deciding on a business proposal, a personal commitment, or an interpersonal response, time allows observation of both the situation and the actors involved. Decisions made with this temporal perspective are more likely to be accurate, strategic, and resilient in the face of future complications. Time acts as a lens, sharpening clarity and revealing what is truly important. Reflection is a critical component of letting time clarify intent. During the waiting period, actively observe both external developments and internal reactions. Notice how your feelings evolve, what additional context emerges, and how others behave consistently over time. Journaling, contemplative thought, and careful assessment are tools that enhance this process. By documenting insights and patterns, the mind develops a framework for understanding intent and predicting outcomes more accurately. Reflection bridges the gap between observation and action, ensuring that when a response is finally made, it is deliberate, informed, and purposeful. The benefits of this approach extend to conflict management. Many disputes escalate because parties act too quickly, responding to perceived provocations without full understanding. Allowing time to pass often diffuses tension, exposes underlying motives, and opens possibilities for resolution that are overlooked in the heat of the moment. Time grants perspective, patience, and insight, transforming potential confrontation into negotiation, dialogue, or understanding. Individuals who master this principle often find themselves navigating tense situations with poise, authority, and clarity, turning challenges into opportunities for constructive outcomes. Time also strengthens personal judgment and self-control. Each decision made with patience and observation reinforces the habit of thoughtful action. Over time, the mind internalizes the pattern of delaying immediate reaction to assess reality more accurately. This practice enhances emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and strategic foresight. Those who cultivate this discipline discover a greater sense of freedom, as they are no longer slaves to instinctive impulses or reactive tendencies. They gain the ability to engage the world intentionally, with awareness of both immediate dynamics and long-term consequences. Detachment from urgency is an essential aspect of this practice. Modern life often pressures individuals to react instantly, whether in communication, social interaction, or professional matters. The compulsion to respond can obscure judgment, heighten stress, and generate errors. By consciously decoupling action from immediate perception, one exercises sovereignty over decisions and behavior. This detachment creates space for thoughtful analysis, observation of patterns, and recognition of true intent. Decisions made from this vantage point are more likely to achieve their desired outcomes without unnecessary conflict, waste of energy, or compromise of integrity. In addition to external clarity, letting time pass strengthens internal resilience. Patience develops through disciplined observation, enabling individuals to endure uncertainty without anxiety or rash action. Emotional stability increases as the mind learns that immediate reaction is rarely required and that most outcomes are not threatened by temporary hesitation. This steadiness enhances confidence, self-control, and the ability to respond effectively under pressure. Time itself becomes a partner in cultivating mental fortitude, reinforcing the capacity to navigate complexity with composure and insight. The principle also encourages a long-term perspective. Immediate reactions often prioritize short-term relief, gratification, or validation. Allowing time for intent to clarify shifts focus from transient concerns to enduring objectives. Patterns of behavior, consistent values, and sustained effort over time reveal what is meaningful, reliable, and aligned with one's principles. Decisions made with this perspective foster stability, effectiveness, and strategic advantage. By aligning action with long-term observation, outcomes are not dictated by fleeting impressions, but by enduring truths and deliberate choice. Finally, embracing the discipline of letting time clarify true intent cultivates wisdom. It is a form of mastery over both circumstance and self. Immediate impulses, misinterpretations, and assumptions are replaced by insight, measured judgment, and thoughtful action. Time becomes an ally, revealing the motives of others, the consequences of choices, and the broader context of events. Life becomes navigable with clarity, resilience, and effectiveness, as responses emerge from understanding rather than reaction. The capacity to wait, observe, and allow truth to reveal itself empowers individuals to engage with the world intentionally. It enhances relationships, improves decision-making, and strengthens emotional stability. It ensures that actions are deliberate, aligned with values, and informed by reality rather than distorted by urgency or assumption. Time clarifies intent, allowing the mind to act with precision, composure, and wisdom. Those who practice this discipline cultivate patience, insight, and strategic mastery, transforming life from reactive chaos into thoughtful, empowered action. By integrating the principle of time into decision-making, conflict resolution, and personal reflection, one gains control over impulses, clarity of judgment, and a deeper understanding of the world and its actors. Life's complexities, provocations, and uncertainties are met not with haste or assumption, but with measured awareness and deliberate action. Time is a tool of discernment, and those who wield it effectively achieve a level of mastery that extends beyond circumstance to influence, effectiveness, and enduring personal growth. Number 7. Win conflicts through calm patience. Conflict is an inevitable part of life. Whether in personal relationships, professional settings, or even within oneself, disagreements and confrontations emerge frequently. The natural tendency for many is to react immediately, defend, counterattack, or assert dominance. Yet, those who consistently succeed in navigating conflict understand a critical principle: calm patience is far more powerful than impulsive response. Winning a conflict does not always mean overpowering the other party or proving oneself right in the moment. It often means preserving clarity, maintaining composure, and guiding the situation toward resolution with intentionality and insight. Calm patience allows the mind to act strategically rather than reactively, turning potentially destructive moments into opportunities for control, understanding, and constructive outcomes. When emotions run high, judgment becomes clouded. Anger, frustration, or fear can distort perception, exaggerate threats, and magnify challenges beyond their actual significance. Immediate reactions driven by these emotions often escalate conflicts, creating tension, resentment, and unintended consequences. Calm patience, however, allows space for perspective to emerge. By resisting the urge to respond instantly, one gains the ability to observe the dynamics, understand the underlying motives of others, and assess the long-term implications of actions. This approach transforms conflict from a battlefield into a landscape of strategy and insight. Patience during conflict requires self-mastery. It begins with awareness of internal reactions. Recognize the bodily and mental signs of rising agitation, accelerated heartbeat, tension in muscles, racing thoughts, or impulses to speak. Acknowledging these sensations without immediately acting upon them creates a momentary pause, a powerful interval in which reason can intervene. This practice ensures that responses are not dictated by emotion, but by careful assessment, aligning action with values, goals, and desired outcomes. Listening is a cornerstone of winning conflicts through patience. In heated moments, the impulse to dominate conversation or assert authority can overshadow the importance of truly understanding the other perspective. By remaining calm and attentive, one gains insight into the other party's intentions, priorities, and concerns. Listening does not signify weakness. Rather, it positions the patient individual to respond with precision and thoughtfulness. Observing the nuances of tone, body language, and choice of words provides a clearer picture of the conflict's root causes, enabling resolution strategies that are both effective and enduring. Another critical dimension is timing. Impulsive responses often exacerbate conflict, while measured pauses allow clarity and strategic insight to develop. Calm patience transforms the temporal element of conflict into a tool rather than a liability. Observing patterns, waiting for emotional intensity to subside, and allowing others to express themselves fully creates openings for dialogue, compromise, and reconciliation. Strategic timing ensures that words and actions are deliberate, persuasive, and aligned with overarching objectives, rather than short-term impulses. Patience also facilitates emotional intelligence. By maintaining composure, one can regulate personal emotions, interpret the emotions of others accurately, and respond in ways that de-escalate tension rather than inflame it. Emotional regulation in conflict prevents reactive outbursts that damage relationships, erode trust, or close avenues for collaboration. Calm patience strengthens the ability to empathize without compromising clarity or principles, creating conditions for resolution that are respectful, thoughtful, and mutually beneficial. A practical technique for cultivating calm patience in conflict is mental rehearsal. Visualize potential scenarios of disagreement or confrontation, imagining yourself responding with measured calm rather than impulsive reaction. Picture observing the other person, understanding their perspective, and choosing words and actions that diffuse tension and foster constructive dialogue. Repeated visualization trains the mind to internalize patience, making composed and strategic responses instinctive even under pressure. Conflict often escalates when the ego feels threatened. The need to assert superiority, defend pride, or secure validation can override reason, prompting rash responses. By detaching from ego-driven impulses and focusing on the desired outcome rather than immediate validation, calm patience becomes achievable. The patient individual prioritizes effectiveness and resolution over winning an argument in the moment, recognizing that long-term influence and respect are more valuable than transient triumphs. Silence plays a complementary role in winning conflicts. Allowing moments of quiet after a provocative statement or during a tense exchange creates space for reflection, observation, and strategic assessment. Silence prevents reactive speech, encourages the other party to elaborate, and often leads them to reveal critical insights about their motives or priorities. These moments of intentional quiet are a tool for control, providing an advantage without confrontation. Calm patience also strengthens decision-making. Conflicts often require choices under pressure, but hasty decisions frequently overlook critical information or long-term consequences. By resisting urgency and observing developments, one can gather evidence, evaluate options, and act decisively when clarity emerges. This approach reduces mistakes, mitigates risk, and ensures that actions align with principles and objectives rather than fleeting emotional responses. Developing patience in conflict is a continuous process. Begin by consciously noting moments of rising agitation and practicing restraint. Reflect on past conflicts to identify patterns where impulsive reactions caused regret or escalation. Implement small pauses in daily interactions, gradually extending the interval between stimulus and response. Over time, these practices create an internal habit of measured composure, transforming instinctive reactions into deliberate, strategic action. Calm patience enhances not only personal effectiveness but also relationships. Those who consistently respond with composure are perceived as trustworthy, reliable, and competent. Their influence increases because others recognize that interactions are guided by insight rather than reactivity. The cultivation of calm patience creates resilience. Life will inevitably present challenges, provocations, and misunderstandings. Those who have mastered the practice approach these events with steadiness, clarity, and confidence. They endure tension without compromising integrity, navigate disputes without unnecessary friction, and achieve outcomes that reflect reasoned judgment rather than impulsive behavior. Patience becomes a source of strength, enabling individuals to face adversity with composure and authority. Practicing calm patience transforms daily life. Minor disagreements, professional disputes, and personal misunderstandings are navigated with foresight and composure. Relationships are strengthened, decisions are more effective, and the individual maintains authority and respect even under pressure. Conflict becomes not a source of stress or chaos, but an arena for exercising wisdom, strategy, and self-control. Each encounter reinforces the habit of measured response, building a reputation for reliability, insight, and enduring capability. The essence of this principle is simple yet profound. True power in conflict does not lie in the speed of reaction, but in the quality of response. Calm patience transforms impulsive interactions into opportunities for clarity, influence, and strategic resolution. It ensures that outcomes are aligned with long-term objectives rather than immediate gratification, and it cultivates resilience, emotional intelligence, and self-mastery. Life's inevitable confrontations are met not with haste or aggression, but with deliberate, insightful, and composed action, turning potential chaos into controlled and constructive results. Number 8. Strengthen discipline with delayed responses. Discipline is the cornerstone of personal mastery, yet it is often misunderstood as rigid adherence to rules or schedules. True discipline extends far beyond external routines. It resides in the mind's ability to govern impulses, choose deliberate action over instinctive reaction, and maintain control over behavior regardless of circumstance. One of the most effective ways to cultivate this inner discipline is through delayed responses. By resisting the urge to react immediately, the mind strengthens its capacity for self-regulation, foresight, and strategic judgment. Every pause between stimulus and action becomes a training ground for discipline, reinforcing the ability to act from intention rather than impulse, to choose reason over emotion, and to align behavior with long-term goals. Immediate responses are seductive precisely because they promise resolution, release, or control. A provocative comment, an unexpected challenge, or a pressing opportunity can trigger instant reaction driven by emotion, ego, or habit. While quick action sometimes serves practicality, in most cases it undermines self-mastery. The impulsive response is rarely the most rational, effective, or beneficial course. It is reactive, short-sighted, and often influenced by transient feelings. Delaying the response introduces a buffer, an intentional pause in which the mind evaluates, reflects, and prepares to act with precision. This simple yet powerful practice transforms ordinary moments into exercises of discipline. To strengthen discipline with delayed responses, one must first cultivate awareness of impulses. The mind must recognize the moment when instinct demands immediate action, whether it is anger, excitement, fear, or desire. Awareness is the first step because it identifies the gap between stimulus and potential reaction. Once this gap is observed, the individual gains the ability to insert deliberate choice, evaluating the consequences, relevance, and alignment of the response with higher principles. Each intentional pause builds the mental muscle of discipline, gradually converting reflexive behavior into thoughtful action. The practical application begins with small, manageable actions. In conversation, pause before replying to challenging statements. Notice the impulse to speak and take a breath, allowing comprehension and reflection to guide your response. In professional contexts, wait before making decisions under pressure. Deliberate pauses in daily interactions, rather than waiting for monumental moments, reinforce habitual self-control. Over time, these small exercises create a mental framework in which delayed response becomes natural, habitual, and instinctive rather than forced or artificial. Delayed responses also strengthen patience, which is inseparable from discipline. By choosing to wait before reacting, the mind cultivates the ability to tolerate uncertainty, navigate ambiguity, and resist external pressures. Patience allows the individual to assess the situation fully, understand motives and patterns, and select a response that serves long-term objectives rather than immediate gratification. This cultivated patience transforms challenges from sources of stress into opportunities for reflection, control, and strategic engagement. A critical component of this practice is emotional regulation. Immediate responses are often dictated by heightened emotion, whether anger, fear, or desire for approval. By delaying action, the mind gains the opportunity to process emotion, reduce intensity, and respond from clarity rather than impulse. Techniques such as slow breathing, counting internally, or visualizing the consequences of action can reinforce this pause, ensuring that emotional energy is directed purposefully rather than wasted in reactive outbursts. Over time, the mind becomes resilient, capable of navigating provocation and pressure with composure and effectiveness. Delayed responses also enhance observation. Acting immediately often blinds the individual to subtle dynamics, hidden motives, or important context. By pausing, one can observe the situation with attention and objectivity. Patterns of behavior, underlying tensions, and potential opportunities reveal themselves during this interval. Observation without immediate action is a critical skill, allowing the mind to gather accurate information, anticipate consequences, and select responses that maximize effectiveness and minimize error. Discipline grows in tandem with this enhanced perception. This practice strengthens both personal and professional relationships. Immediate reactions frequently escalate conflict, generate misunderstanding, or create tension. By delaying responses, one demonstrates composure, respect, and thoughtfulness. Others perceive the individual as reliable, controlled, and considerate, fostering trust and collaboration. In negotiations, discussions, or difficult conversations, the disciplined pause allows for the collection of facts, assessment of motives, and formulation of measured, strategic responses. Delayed responses are a demonstration of integrity, respect, and mastery over the self, which builds credibility and influence over time. Discipline through delayed responses is also a tool for long-term decision-making. Immediate action often prioritizes short-term relief, quick wins, or impulsive gratification. Waiting allows evaluation of consequences, consideration of alternatives, and alignment with values and objectives. The ability to delay action converts impulsive tendencies into thoughtful decisions that serve enduring goals rather than temporary impulses. Life becomes navigable with strategic foresight, and the individual maintains authority over both choices and circumstances. Internal reflection during the delay is critical. Use the pause to analyze your own motivations and biases. Ask questions such as, why do I feel compelled to act immediately? What outcome am I seeking? How will this decision affect me or others in the long run? Self-inquiry strengthens discipline by creating awareness of internal drivers and aligning behavior with rational thought and ethical standards. Each act of reflection reinforces self-control and builds a resilient mental framework capable of resisting impulsive behavior in future moments. Physical grounding amplifies the impact of delayed responses. The body and mind are interconnected, and impulses often manifest physically before reaching conscious awareness. By practicing physical awareness, slow breathing, relaxed posture, or mindful attention to sensations, one reinforces the mental pause. The body's stability supports emotional and cognitive regulation, making the delayed response more deliberate and natural. Repeatedly pairing mental restraint with physical grounding strengthens the neural patterns associated with discipline, creating lasting mastery over impulse. Delayed responses also build resilience against external pressures. Society often rewards speed, immediate gratification, and reactive behavior. Choosing to pause before responding requires courage, self-confidence, and internal stability. This practice trains the mind to act independently of external demands, creating a foundation for disciplined thought, principled action, and consistent behavior. Over time, the individual becomes less susceptible to manipulation, stress, or social coercion, maintaining clarity and integrity even under pressure. The benefits of this practice extend into mental clarity and creativity. Immediate reactions frequently close the mind to alternative perspectives or innovative solutions. By inserting a deliberate pause, the mind gains the opportunity to explore options, consider consequences, and generate ideas that are both original and effective. Delayed responses enhance problem-solving, decision-making, and overall strategic thinking, reinforcing the long-term advantages of disciplined restraint. Ultimately, strengthening discipline through delayed responses transforms life. Every pause becomes a rehearsal for mastery, every moment of restraint builds resilience, and every deliberate choice reinforces the mind's capacity for control. Impulsive tendencies give way to deliberate action, reactive behavior is replaced by strategic engagement, and life becomes navigable with clarity, effectiveness, and self-mastery. Those who master this principle are empowered to act with precision, guided by values, foresight, and long-term vision rather than fleeting impulses. By integrating delayed responses into daily life, discipline evolves from an abstract ideal into practical, observable behavior. Each interaction, decision, or moment of temptation becomes an opportunity to exercise restraint, reflect, and respond with intention. Over time, the mind internalizes this pattern, creating automatic proficiency in self-regulation, strategic judgment, and principled action. The practice of delaying responses is not passive avoidance. It is the deliberate cultivation of inner strength, wisdom, and enduring personal power, forming the foundation of true discipline and self-mastery. Number 9. Replace impulse with intentional action. Impulse is the force that drives much of human behavior. It manifests as immediate reactions to external stimuli, sudden desires, or the urge to act without reflection. While impulses can sometimes be useful for rapid response in emergencies, in daily life they often lead to mistakes, regret, and misalignment with long-term goals. Acting on impulse is reactive. It prioritizes immediate emotion or sensation over reason, strategy, and purpose. In contrast, intentional action is deliberate, measured, and aligned with values, objectives, and outcomes. Replacing impulse with intentional action is the practice of exercising self-mastery, turning instinctive tendencies into conscious, empowered choices, and cultivating a life guided by awareness, purpose, and deliberate control. The first step in transforming impulse into intentional action is awareness. Recognizing the moment when an impulse arises creates a critical pause. Every impulse, whether it is anger, desire, fear, or excitement, begins as a subtle shift in thought or bodily sensation. By noticing these early signals, the mind can intervene before automatic reaction occurs. This awareness is the foundation for intentional action. It is the space between stimulus and response where choice becomes possible. Without this observation, impulses dominate behavior, and actions are dictated by emotion rather than reason. Intentional action requires reflection on consequences. Impulsive behavior is often short-sighted, prioritizing immediate gratification or relief. By contrast, deliberate responses consider both immediate effects and long-term outcomes. When faced with a strong urge, pause and evaluate: what impact will this action have on myself, others, and the situation? Is it aligned with my goals, values, and principles? By integrating this assessment into decision-making, behavior shifts from reactive to deliberate, from temporary satisfaction to meaningful progress. Each decision becomes a step toward self-mastery rather than a reaction to circumstance. Discipline is the cornerstone of replacing impulse with intentional action. Self-control is cultivated by repeatedly choosing thoughtfulness over reaction. Small, consistent exercises in restraint, pausing before speaking, waiting before responding to emotional triggers, and delaying gratification, train the mind to favor reasoned action. Over time, these habits strengthen neural pathways that support intentionality, making deliberate behavior more natural and automatic than impulsive reaction. The mind learns that power lies not in immediate response, but in measured, conscious engagement. Observation of patterns enhances the ability to act intentionally. Impulses are rarely isolated. They follow recurring triggers and tendencies. By analyzing previous moments of impulsive behavior, one can identify circumstances, emotional states, or external cues that provoke unconsidered action. This awareness allows preemptive strategies, preparing responses, reframing situations, or practicing restraint before the impulse escalates. Understanding patterns empowers the mind to anticipate and manage impulses, transforming potential chaos into disciplined, intentional conduct. Mindfulness is a powerful tool in replacing impulse with intentional action. Paying attention to bodily sensations, emotions, and thought patterns creates a bridge between instinct and choice. When an urge arises, observe it without judgment. Notice the intensity, its origin, and its transient nature. Mindfulness reduces the compulsion to act immediately by creating distance between stimulus and reaction. It fosters clarity, self-awareness, and composure, allowing the mind to respond with intention rather than reflex. This practice reinforces self-mastery and gradually diminishes the automatic pull of impulse. Intentional action also involves prioritizing values over emotion. Impulses often reflect temporary desires or fears that are not aligned with deeper principles or long-term goals. By anchoring decisions in core values, the mind gains a framework for choosing action that is consistent, principled, and effective. For example, responding to criticism with calm reasoning rather than defensive anger aligns with patience, integrity, and strategic influence. Intentionality transforms challenges into opportunities for growth, turning instinctive reactions into guided, purposeful behavior. Delay is a critical component of replacing impulse with intention. Acting immediately rarely allows for full assessment of consequences or options. Introducing a deliberate pause between impulse and action creates the space necessary for evaluation. This delay can be as brief as a single deep breath or a momentary reflection, or it can extend over hours or days depending on the complexity of the situation. During this interval, the mind evaluates priorities, considers perspectives, and decides on the most effective course of action. Delay transforms impulsive behavior into informed, intentional action. Physical grounding supports the replacement of impulse with intention. Impulses often manifest as bodily tension, agitation, or restlessness. Techniques such as deep breathing, focused attention on sensations, or mindful movement help regulate the body and calm the nervous system. This physiological stability reinforces mental control, making it easier to respond deliberately rather than reactively. The integration of mind and body strengthens self-regulation, ensuring that intentional action is sustainable even under stress or provocation. Communication provides a practical arena for practicing intentional action. Words spoken in haste frequently escalate conflict or create misunderstanding. By choosing silence, framing responses carefully, and assessing the impact of speech, one exercises discipline and intentionality. Listening fully before responding allows for comprehension, empathy, and strategic engagement. Intentional communication transforms interactions from reactive exchanges into opportunities for influence, understanding, and resolution. It demonstrates mastery of both self and circumstance. Decision-making in daily life benefits greatly from replacing impulse with intentional action. Choices regarding finances, relationships, work, and personal habits are often made under the influence of fleeting desires or pressures. By cultivating the habit of pausing, assessing, and aligning actions with goals, the mind ensures that decisions are coherent, principled, and sustainable. Each intentional choice compounds over time, reinforcing the structure of a disciplined, purposeful life. Impulse is no longer a tyrant. Deliberate action becomes the default mode. Intentional action requires courage, as resisting impulse often contradicts habit, social pressure, or immediate emotional reward. It demands confidence in one's values, foresight, and judgment. Each successful act of restraint strengthens the mind's capacity for self-governance, building resilience, independence, and mastery. Over time, the individual becomes less swayed by external provocation and internal temptation, navigating life with clarity, confidence, and effectiveness. Replacing impulse with intentional action also enhances problem-solving and creativity. Impulses are often reactive, focusing on immediate relief or reaction rather than innovative solutions. By responding deliberately, the mind evaluates options, considers novel approaches, and chooses strategies that are both effective and sustainable. Intentional action transforms challenges into opportunities for thoughtful engagement, leveraging circumstances rather than being dictated by them. The practice of intentional action is cumulative. Each moment of reflection, delay, and conscious choice reinforces the mind's capacity to resist impulse. Over time, this builds an internal culture of self-control, foresight, and alignment with purpose. Life becomes more navigable, less reactive, and more productive. Impulses are not denied, but are observed, evaluated, and redirected toward outcomes that serve long-term growth and mastery. Ultimately, replacing impulse with intentional action is the pathway to self-mastery. It transforms daily life from a series of reactive responses into a structured, purposeful engagement with the world. Emotional volatility diminishes, relationships improve, decisions gain coherence, and personal influence strengthens. Each deliberate action reinforces autonomy, builds resilience, and aligns behavior with principles, vision, and goals. The mind becomes an instrument of purpose rather than a servant to instinct, and life unfolds with clarity, strength, and intentionality. By practicing awareness, delay, reflection, and alignment with values, The power of impulse is transformed into the strength of intentional action. Every moment becomes an opportunity to exercise self-mastery, shape outcomes thoughtfully, and engage with life deliberately. This disciplined approach cultivates resilience, wisdom, and effectiveness, creating a life guided by conscious choice rather than reactive habit. Number 10. Learn wisdom through controlled stillness. Stillness is more than the absence of movement. It is a conscious engagement with presence, awareness, and reflection. In a world driven by noise, constant stimulation, and relentless activity, the ability to remain intentionally still is both rare and profoundly powerful. Controlled stillness is not passivity or avoidance. It is an active choice to observe, reflect, and internalize lessons before acting. Wisdom emerges not from constant motion or endless reaction, but from the quiet space where the mind can perceive deeply, process fully, and connect with insight beyond the immediate. By cultivating controlled stillness, one gains clarity, perspective, and the capacity to respond to life with precision, composure, and understanding. The practice begins with attention. True stillness requires the mind to disengage from habitual distraction and observe the present moment fully. This observation extends beyond surface awareness, reaching into thought patterns, emotional currents, and the subtle rhythms of life. In controlled stillness, the individual learns to notice the undercurrents of tension, desire, and expectation that typically drive impulsive behavior. Recognizing these elements allows the mind to step back from automatic reactions, creating a vantage point from which wisdom naturally arises. Controlled stillness cultivates clarity of perception. In the midst of activity and noise, judgments are clouded by incomplete information, bias, and emotional turbulence. By intentionally withdrawing into stillness, the mind gains the opportunity to see situations more objectively. Patterns, connections, and truths that were obscured by the haste of daily life become apparent. This clarity is the foundation of wise action, as it enables discernment between what is essential and what is trivial, what is constructive and what is destructive, and what aligns with principle versus impulse. Reflection is an integral component of this practice. Controlled stillness is not empty time. It is active engagement with thought and insight. During still moments, one can revisit experiences, evaluate responses, and extract lessons. Successes and failures alike are clarified through observation, enabling the mind to recognize patterns, anticipate consequences, and internalize principles that guide future behavior. This reflective process converts experience into wisdom, ensuring that actions are informed by understanding rather than repetition of error. Controlled stillness also strengthens emotional regulation. Many challenges in life arise because emotions overwhelm reason. By practicing stillness, the individual develops the capacity to observe feelings without being dominated by them. Anger, fear, desire, or impatience are acknowledged, assessed, and contained. The mind learns that these impulses are temporary currents rather than commands requiring immediate action. Through this mastery of emotional observation, decisions emerge from reasoned insight rather than reactive intensity, cultivating a steadiness that underlies wise conduct. Silence and stillness complement each other in cultivating wisdom. In silence, thoughts settle, the noise of distraction diminishes, and the mind becomes receptive. Controlled stillness leverages this silence, allowing subtle insights to surface. Observing without immediately responding creates space for understanding motives, dynamics, and consequences in interactions with others. In both personal and professional contexts, this pause enhances judgment, strengthens strategic thinking, and fosters measured responses that are effective, ethical, and aligned with long-term objectives. Patience is another product of controlled stillness. Wisdom cannot be rushed. It develops over time through repeated observation, reflection, and integration of experience. By embracing stillness, the mind learns to tolerate uncertainty, resist premature conclusions, and wait for deeper understanding. This patience ensures that decisions are not dictated by the urgency of circumstance or the pressure of external expectations, but by measured consideration of outcomes and alignment with values. Each act of restraint reinforces the habit of deliberate thought, reinforcing self-mastery and insight. Observation during stillness deepens understanding of both self and others. By removing the compulsion to act immediately, subtle patterns of behavior, unspoken motives, and hidden dynamics are revealed. The ability to perceive these elements allows the individual to navigate complex situations with strategic precision, avoiding misjudgments and unnecessary conflict. Controlled stillness turns observation into an instrument of wisdom, providing insight into human behavior and the intricacies of circumstance that are invisible to reactive minds. Stillness also nurtures creativity and problem-solving. In the absence of constant distraction, the mind can explore possibilities, connect ideas, and generate solutions that are innovative and effective. Impulsive action often limits creativity, focusing on immediate solutions or habitual responses. Controlled stillness expands the cognitive landscape, allowing for flexible thinking, original strategies, and thoughtful problem resolution. Insight is cultivated not through hurried activity, but through reflective, attentive presence. Practical techniques enhance the ability to maintain controlled stillness. Mindful breathing, meditation, walking in quiet observation, or deliberate pauses in daily routines all train the mind to inhabit stillness intentionally. Over time, these practices develop resilience against internal and external agitation, strengthening focus, clarity, and insight. Controlled stillness becomes a skill applied not only in deliberate practice, but also in the flow of daily life, turning moments of potential distraction or conflict into opportunities for reflection and wisdom. Stillness reinforces discipline and self-control. The impulse to act immediately, to speak without reflection, or to respond based on surface emotion is constantly present. Choosing stillness interrupts this reflex, reinforcing the habit of measured, conscious engagement. Each moment of restraint trains the mind to act from intention rather than reaction, strengthening the capacity to direct energy, attention, and behavior toward meaningful objectives. The disciplined mind cultivated through stillness is resilient, perceptive, and capable of achieving long-term goals with precision. Controlled stillness also strengthens discernment in relationships. Many conflicts and misunderstandings arise from hasty judgments or reactive communication. By practicing stillness before responding, one gains the capacity to listen attentively, understand perspectives fully, and respond in ways that are both empathetic and effective. This approach fosters trust, respect, and influence, creating connections rooted in understanding rather than conflict. Wisdom in interaction grows from the ability to pause, observe, and act with intention. The benefits of controlled stillness extend to personal growth and self-understanding. By observing thoughts, behaviors, and patterns without distraction, the mind becomes aware of habitual tendencies, unproductive impulses, and areas requiring development. Stillness provides the space to internalize lessons, implement changes, and cultivate virtues such as patience, resilience, and foresight. Through consistent practice, the individual builds a foundation of inner wisdom that guides choices, responses, and interactions across all aspects of life. Ultimately, learning wisdom through controlled stillness transforms life. The habitual rush to react, speak, or act is replaced by observation, reflection, and intentional engagement. Emotional turbulence is tempered by clarity and patience. Decisions are informed by insight rather than impulse. Relationships deepen through understanding and presence. Each moment of stillness becomes an opportunity for growth, mastery, and insight. The mind becomes a well-tuned instrument of reason, perception, and deliberate action. The practice of controlled stillness is not passive withdrawal from the world, but active engagement with thought, emotion, and circumstance. Life's complexities, provocations, and challenges are met not with hasty reaction, but with measured observation, reflection, and thoughtful response. Wisdom emerges from these moments of quiet attention, guiding behavior with insight, integrity, and clarity. Those who master controlled stillness navigate life with composure, understanding, and effectiveness, converting potential chaos into deliberate, meaningful, and empowered action. Through sustained practice, controlled stillness becomes a habit of mind and a tool for living wisely. It allows the individual to perceive truth amidst distraction, to act with reason amidst provocation, and to cultivate understanding amidst uncertainty. Wisdom, cultivated through this disciplined presence, informs every choice, enriches every relationship, and strengthens the capacity to influence life with clarity, purpose, and insight. Controlled stillness transforms ordinary experience into a disciplined journey of insight, mastery, and profound understanding.